The House of Shadows in the small, sleepy town of Ravenwood, an old mansion stood at the end of Elm Street, shrouded in mystery and tales of terror. The locals called it the House of Shadows. For decades, it had been abandoned, its windows dark and its once grand facade now crumbling and overgrown with ivy. Children dared each other to touch its gates, while adults spoke of the house in hushed tones, recalling the stories of those who had ventured inside and never been the same. One autumn evening, as the first chill of winter settled over the town, a young writer named Jonathan arrived in Ravenwood. Jonathan had come in search of inspiration for his next novel, and the eerie allure of the House of Shadows intrigued him. He rented a room at the local inn and spent his days wandering the town, listening to the locals' tales of the haunted mansion. "Be careful if you go near that place," warned Mrs. Whittaker, the innkeeper, her eyes wide with concern. "Strange things happen there. People say it's cursed." Jonathan, ever the skeptic, dismissed the warnings as mere superstition. But the more he heard about the house, the more his curiosity grew. He decided that he would spend a night inside the House of Shadows, hoping to uncover its secrets and perhaps find the inspiration he sought. On the night of his venture, the moon hung low and full, casting an eerie glow over Ravenwood. Jonathan packed a small bag with essentials, a flashlight, a notebook, and a camera, and made his way to the mansion. The iron gates creaked open with a ghostly wail, and he stepped onto the overgrown path that led to the front door. The house loomed before him, its dark silhouette against the night sky sending a shiver down his spine. Jonathan took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy wooden door, which groaned in protest. The air inside was cold and musty, filled with the scent of decay and neglect. He flicked on his flashlight, its beam slicing through the darkness, revealing dust-covered furniture and cobwebs that hung like curtains. As he explored the ground floor, Jonathan felt a growing sense of unease. The house seemed to whisper around him, the creaking floorboards and rustling leaves outside creating an unsettling symphony. He paused in the grand foyer, taking in the once opulent surroundings now reduced to ruin. A large staircase wound up to the second floor, its banister adorned with intricate carvings now faded and worn. Determined to see the entire house, Jonathan ascended the staircase. Each step echoed in the silence, amplifying his growing apprehension. On the second floor, he found a long hallway lined with doors. He tried each one, finding only empty rooms filled with shadows and forgotten memories. At the end of the hallway, a door stood slightly ajar. Jonathan pushed it open and found himself in what must have once been a master bedroom. A large, ornate bed dominated the room, its canopy tattered and its linens yellowed with age. On the nightstand, a dusty old journal caught his eye. He picked it up, carefully wiping away the grime to reveal its cover. The journal belonged to a woman named Eleanor Blackwood, the last known resident of the house. Jonathan sat on the edge of the bed and began to read, the candlelight flickering as he turned the pages. Eleanor's entries spoke of a happy life turned dark by a series of tragic events, illness, loss, and a growing sense of dread that seemed to consume the household. As he read, Jonathan felt a chill in the air, as if the very walls were absorbing Eleanor's sorrow. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed through the house, startling him. He stood up, his heart pounding, and shone his flashlight around the room. The noise seemed to have come from the hallway. Summoning his courage, Jonathan stepped out of the bedroom and followed the sound. It led him to a small door at the end of the hall, one he hadn't noticed before. He opened it to reveal a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. With a sense of foreboding, he descended, the air growing colder with each step. At the bottom, he found himself in a cellar. The flashlight's beam revealed old furniture covered in sheets, and in the corner, a large, ornate mirror. The mirror's surface was covered in grime, but as Jonathan approached, he saw something moving within it, a shadowy figure that seemed to beckon him closer. Mesmerized, he reached out to touch the mirror, but his hand passed through it as if it were made of smoke. Suddenly, the figure lunged at him, and Jonathan stumbled backward, his heart racing. The cellar filled with an otherworldly cold, and whispers seemed to emanate from the walls, growing louder and more frantic. Jonathan turned to flee, but the cellar door slammed shut, trapping him inside. He pounded on the door, shouting for help, but his voice was swallowed by the oppressive darkness. The whispers grew into a cacophony, and the shadowy figure emerged from the mirror, its form twisting and writhing. Desperate, Jonathan remembered the journal. He pulled it from his bag and frantically flipped through the pages, searching for anything that might help him. One entry caught his eye, a passage where Eleanor spoke of a ritual to cleanse the house of its darkness. It required an offering of light and the recitation of a specific incantation. With shaking hands, Jonathan lit a candle from his bag and began to recite the words. The shadowy figure paused, its movements slowing as the light grew brighter. The whispers faded into silence, and the cold receded. As he finished the incantation, the figure dissolved into the air, leaving behind an eerie stillness. The cellar door creaked open, and Jonathan stumbled out, breathless and shaken. He fled the house, the morning light breaking over the horizon as he emerged. The villagers found him on the steps of the inn, clutching Eleanor's journal, his face pale and his eyes wide with terror. In the days that followed, Jonathan penned his experience, the story of the House of Shadows becoming his most gripping work. The mansion remained abandoned, its doors forever closed, but the tale of its haunting lived on in Ravenwood, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can linger in the corners of forgotten places.